Hello everyone, in my Real Rockets pack I have included the Long March 3B, Long March 5, and Long March 10 from China, but I have not included the Long March 9, which is, I think, the largest one that they have in development. It is more than 4,000 tons in mass. This is a version that's just procedural parts plus Raptor engines, actually. I haven't made the engines. I'm using Raptor engines because that's pretty clearly what they're trying to copy. And overall, the goal seems to be something like Starship Super Heavy. Well, not really. The goal seems to be something like Super Heavy, but not like Starship. And that's where we get into problems and why I haven't bothered to try and make it, because I don't think it's right. Let's take a look at Wikipedia to see what it has to say about the Long March 9, and you'll see what I mean. Alright, so Long March 9, now this is Wikipedia, but I don't speak Mandarin, so this is probably the best source I'm gonna get. There used to be a good active source, B14643 dot something or another, that had good data on rockets, but unfortunately it closed. The website no longer functions. But here we have Long March 9 and the most recent 2023 proposal, because they've sort of changed it a few times, is for this current version that has a 3-stage rocket, but 3 stages only for beyond low Earth orbit. For low Earth orbit, it's just 2 stages. The reusable first stage would cluster 30 YF-215 Methalox engines, with long-term plans to make the second stage reusable. Right. These features and previous designs have drawn comparisons to SpaceX's Starship. No kidding. And then the third stage is the Hydrolox stage that can boost things to the Moon or Mars. The Long March 10 is the one they're planning to use for their lunar mission. This is beyond that. The payload capacity to LEO is 150 tons. That's not reusable as far as I can tell, which is pretty bad. And we'll see why they have decided to make this bad, because it's bad, and that's the problem here. And the reason why it's bad is probably because of the way they want to recover the second stage. I'm not sure, but one thing you'll notice is that we've got in this image, that's the first stage obviously, because there's the grid fins, and then so the inner stage, and then the fairings on top. The second stage is quite a bit shorter than Starship, isn't it? And if we take a look here, we see that they're both the same diameter and they're wider than Starship. It's 10.6 meters. But the propellant mass of the first stage is about the same as Super Heavy, but the second stage is 370 tons only, which is a fraction of Starship, depending on which version of Starship, about 25%. And it's got only 2 engines. These engines, by the way, the YF-215s, are about the same same thrust as Raptor in its initial version, not its upgraded Raptor 3 version. It's 2,000 kilonewtons at sea level. Raptor got a little bit more than that. So Raptor has more thrust, but still full flow staged combustion, and it says 26 engines on the first stage in this version, but we're gonna go with 30 because that's what it says here. So yeah, that's the liftoff amount, and then the second stage only has 2 engines as opposed to Starship's 6. So what's the problem with this? Well, if you want the first stage back, you need the second stage to do some work, and practically speaking, it's not doing enough work. Let's go back to Kerbal Space Program. So we've got 30 engines here. I've got 16 in the outer ring, 8 in the middle ring, and then 6 in the inner ring. I don't know how they want to arrange it, but that seemed reasonable to me. And we have a 150-ton payload on top. So that's the rated LEO payload. But we are only getting 9,500, so we can just make orbit right now. And you can see the thrust-to-weight ratios. It's pretty decent there, but of course I'm using Raptors, so they get more thrust at sea level by about 100 kilonewtons only, so about 5%, than their engines are supposedly able to do. The problem is our weak second stage. The second stage is this bit. This is the second stage, and you can see the engines and how small the tank is by comparison. I've underutilized the tank just so that we could give it some height, but it'd be even shorter. Now, why did I say that this might be because of reusing the second stage? Well, because then you can sort of put a heat shield on it and potentially bring it back like that. But it's certainly never, with two engines like that, ever going to be like a Starship. So if they're planning to reuse it, they're planning to reuse it capsule style with a heat shield. But right now, this can only carry 150 tons to orbit as it is. And that's without reusability. So that's pretty poor. That's our 150 tons there. Now, I've based this on the amount of propellant mass that it said in Wikipedia. So the propellant mass is correct. The dry masses may not be correct. The efficiency is about correct. We're using the baseline Raptors, and we've got a little bit of extra thrust. So that's how it all shakes up. The problem is that the first stage is going to get too far out. It's giving us way too much of the delta V. The way the Starship is set up is if this, first of all, has more utilization, and then this is much bigger, more like that. See the 5,000 tons you would expect from Starship, and then I think my engines have gotten buried in the middle of the tank. This happens sometimes. Okay, so Starship is more like this. Let me just put 6 of these and ignore the gimbling issue for now. So then we have a thrust weight ratio of 1 there, a nice hefty amount of delta V, and you get the picture. This is doing more work to get to orbit, and this stays at a low velocity so that it can land safely. Now, you could go, well, yeah, but that's for returning to launch site. Maybe they're landing on a drone ship or something like that. It'd have to be a big drone ship because there's now 10.6 meters. Fine. Let's say they're landing on a drone ship. It's still the case that this is way too overpowered compared to the upper stage. For a drone ship landing, we can take New Glenn as an example. New Glenn, the upper stage, provides 2 engines that have a total of close to 2,000 kilonewtons. That's about 1/7 the thrust of the first stage engines, so they have 7 engines that each provide about 2,000 kilonewtons. So a little bit more than that. But the ratio is basically, as far as thrust is concerned, the ratio is about, let's say, 1/8 on the upper stage. For Falcon 9, the ratio is about 1/9 because it's 1 Merlin engine compared to 9, though the Merlin engine in the vacuum configuration gets a little bit more thrust. And then for Starship Super Heavy, it's 1/5. If we take a look back on the Wikipedia page here, though you could work it out yourself, it's the same engine on the second stage as the first stage. It's just a vacuum variant, presumably. And the ratio is 15. So, in other words, the first stage gets 15 times more thrust than the second stage. And that's a lot. I mean, compared to the other numbers that we've been throwing out. 1/8 for New Glenn, or, 1/9 for Falcon 9. So, again, it's asking the first stage to do a lot more work to the point where it's not going to be able to land anywhere. It's just going too fast. So that is the problem. Now let's take a look at how we might optimize this a little bit better. Of course, we could say that, we could go the full Starship. Now I'm gonna presume that we need to keep the thrust weight ratio that they had. So we're gonna make this smaller. And that's because the thrust of their engines might be weak. So this is a little bit OP for the weaker engines. I think we can leave off one of the... Well, we can probably just have 4 engines on this because of the weaker first stage. And this is getting a little bit better. So here we see that now we've added 400 meters per second without changing the sea level thrust weight ratio at all. The upper stage thrust weight ratio is a little bit low, so we'll give some of that benefit up. But we don't have to go all the way down. This 0.9 is fine. And so getting back to the 9,500 meters per second we had before, how much more payload capacity can we carry? And then we get basically 30 tons more. So if we could increase the size of this tank by a significant amount, I think we've more than doubled the size actually, and carry two extra engines, so a total of 4 on the upper stage, then we end up getting 30 tons more to low Earth orbit, and we haven't really hurt the first stage thrust to weight ratio much. So why aren't they doing that is the question. Why aren't they making it more like Starship Super Heavy instead of making it squat and having a small tank here? I guess it's because they're trying to recover the second stage capsule style or something like that. Otherwise, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So maybe they're messing with us, or maybe they've made a horrible mistake. I don't know. But there is no good reason for the second stage of this rocket to have just 2 engines of the same kind that the first stage has 30 of. And I am going to expect that that's going to change. So the fact that the rated capacity of it to low Earth orbit doesn't include the reusability suggests to me that they're not that serious about reusability. Probably the reason that they have it like that is because they're not really serious about reusability at all. They're just doing it because SpaceX is doing it, and it's sort of a Baran kind of syndrome where they just have to match whatever the Americans are doing. Us Americans, I should say. So that seems to be the case. If you guys have some other logical reason why the second stage should be about this size, it's 370 tons in propellant mass, and have just 2 engines, by all means tell me. I can't figure that out. I think that that's probably bad for the first stage recovery overall, and it's gonna get torched on the way down. But maybe, you know, they know something I don't know. It's possible. But we do have examples of this, and this is not how they're set up. So anyway, with that look at the Long March 9, I'll say thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do press like. If you have any comments or suggestions, please leave them in the comment section below, and I'll see you next time.